Innovative volunteerism is
The youth are the leaders of tomorrow. A lot of the burden of climate action and climate advocacy is on our shoulders. So the very first question I had for both Dr. Richard and Dr. Ash is, how can we change mindsets and mentor the youth of today to become climate leaders of tomorrow? I would like to direct the same question to Dr. Richard, because both of you all are mentors to a lot of young people like us. We come to you for a lot of things just to learn and move forward. So hence, I think there are no two better people who can tell us that what are some effective ways in which we can mold ourselves to becoming climate leaders. So Dr. Richard, the same question to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Moderator, if you allow me to call you like that, Priyanka, right? Yes, and I will build on what Ajab said. I think he has summarized it so nicely. But the key is that, let's put it in perspective. Actually, the young people are like the tip of the spear. They can tear through every challenge. But what they need is to self-believe that they are the ones they need. So what does that mean? It also means the area in which the young people are growing up in, the area of today is different from the 60s, the 50s, the 70s, the 90s, and even the early 2000s. You have every tool, but you have every tool in their hands that the generations that came before them didn't have that opportunity. And as a result of that, sometimes they do not believe that they have what it takes to build themselves and solve problems. Then they get fixated with the problems and they reduce themselves to be part of the problem rather than being part of the solution. And so what needs to happen is to see every challenge as a disguised opportunity and to self-believe. And climate change, despite the fact that it is actually one of the worst issues that have ever happened in the human era, it is a challenge that is impacting every level of society, but it also presents an opportunity bigger than any other in the entire world. But that opportunity, the window of that opportunity is being closed, because if you look the entire world and you take the African continent, over 60% of the population is youthful. 12 million of them are graduating into the labor market each and every year, and they are competing with jobs that are not even there. And as a result of that, the joblessness and the unemployment level and disenfranchisement is increasing. But no one actually is looking at it from the perspective that if you are waiting for government to create jobs, government can never create the jobs for the 12 million people alone. Government role is not only to create, it's to create an enabling environment. And if you look across the entire African continent, I think we discussed it yesterday, every country do have a policy, whether it is climate smart agricultural policy, or whether it is energy policy, feed-in tariffs, or whether it is forestry policy. But no one is looking at how do I retool my skill to be able to develop an interest so that I can be able to just turn waste to briquettes. And that is a market opportunity. You do not need government to do that, but you need to self-believe and then avail yourself, because what I say is every young person should be able to avail his or herself to learn a skill, because your biggest ability is your availability. But when we call meetings like this one here today, how many of them are there? Let's also be honest. They do not show up, and because they don't show up, they miss opportunity. And when you miss opportunity, then definitely you cannot be able to blame any other person, because the only person to blame is yourself. And I think the other aspect, which is quite very, very important, is the aspect of not understanding that what matters in the world of today, whether you are young or you are old, is value. Value is not given. Value is acquired. And to acquire value, you need effort. And that effort means that you need to get up in the morning and use your two hands to learn a skill, to contribute to something that is bigger than yourself. And to be able to do that, you need to develop purpose. Purpose is, because the purpose of life is to be useful. It's usefulness. And to be useful, you must be able to contribute in a positive way to society. And that then takes me to the point of being useful also means that you need to be passionate. And passion, because passion is what actually drives people to do things. It's the fuel. I call it the new currency of now. But passionate to turn a challenge into an opportunity. Unless we do that, my worry is, and that worry is real, because unless we do that, the disenfranchisement, especially with young people today, will continue to increase. And they will continue to have a gap that is too big, an inspiration gap that is getting wider, a motivation gap that is getting wider, a passion gap that is getting wider. And then even when we have the resources in place, we will never have the people with the right skills to be able to turn that challenge into an opportunity. And development, transformational, climate resilient development will never be achieved.
Thank you, Dr. Richard. I think there were some very key points both from Dr. Ash and Dr. Richard. The idea of working individually as well as collectively, the idea of value, the idea of passion. I think some key points that we need to imbibe within ourselves. And with that, I think I will hand it to Shay to take forward the next.
This is a question that I really love. I think I've asked you before, but I'm not sure if I have done. But I would like to ask you, could you tell us about innovative volunteerism? What inspired you to initiate this, and how you were able to get the youth of Africa to join this movement? I mean, because this the first time I heard innovative volunteerism on when I saw it on Twitter, I just fell in love with that. I never knew it was attached to Dr. Richard, to be honest, but I just loved it. So I just want you to talk about that. How did you come about this idea, and how did you get people to join, and especially young Africans? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Say. And that's a very good question. And I knew that this was going to come. It always comes up all the time. And I think I will appreciate that, even though as I answer it, everyone should download a copy of my book and read it. It's free on my website, richardmunang.com. The point is this. I grew up in the northwestern part of Cameroon in a small village called Jinqing. Went to school. That shows it's not an issue. Grew up in a poor family. That's not an issue. People grow up in poor families. The issue is not where you come from. The issue is what you do with what you have. Because of that, when I finally went to school and graduated and started my career, what I noticed, especially in the African continent, which is replicable to other parts of the world, is that projects alone will not be able to solve the monumental challenges that we face, especially that of climate change. That individual action, as Ash said, is not going to be enough. The biggest individual action is collective action. And because of that, project after project, implementation comes and goes, but the problems continues to perpetuate. And then when you look at the entire African continent, 257 million people go to bed hungry. You're getting into the labor market without jobs. And then we're having ecological degradation. Then we're having all these challenges compounding every year and every year. So I asked myself, if you were actually to do everything, how will you engage everybody in a way that the person contribute his own quota towards the solution process without necessarily having to wait and say what we are used to, that I do not have money, so I cannot do anything, which is the easiest excuse. And because of that, I thought through this, and this is actually captured in my book, and given the fact that we have a continent at the moment, 1.3 billion people increasing, we have the youthful population over 60% who are jobless. How will they get the jobs? But I noticed that we are not tapping into something that is quite very, very crucial in driving any transformational development, especially under the changing climate, where we need 50 billion if we are to hit 2 degrees. And currently in the continent, we need every year about 7 to 15 billion to implement. Where will the resources come from? And even if the resources were there, do we have the right skills? Because this is something we always miss. As a result of that, what I thought through was that if we are able to inspire a human being to see himself as a solution by retooling his or her skill, then that person, once you retool his skill and he or she is guided to leverage on inspiration and focus in turning a challenge into an opportunity, just focusing on the agro value chain, which currently is losing about 48 billion in the African continent, just as an example, or the charcoal that mothers in villages are using for cooking, and as a result of that, that is causing indoor pollution and killing them. If we are able to guide people and inspire them to just turn waste to briquettes, that will solve a problem. And that then is the essence, the reason why I came up with this logic of innovative volunteerism, which is structured guidance, leveraging on inspiration, leveraging on motivation, and inspiring people, regardless of age, young at heart, and to retool their skills and tap into these hidden opportunities that are disguised as challenges, but do so in a way that they work with one another, where collectivism becomes the central stage, where selflessness, not selfishness, because a lot of people love to work alone, selflessness trumps selfishness, and where collectivism trumps individualism, and where hopelessness gets overpowered by hopefulness. And that is the essence of innovative volunteerism, that we can collectively come together regardless of which organization you work, because organizations are people themselves. Without people, organizations will not function. And so even as an individual, somebody will tell you, I cannot do it because I am not in an organization. That's a lie. You can do it because you yourself, you are an organization. You yourself, your skills and talents can inspire someone to do it differently. And when we started it, people didn't believe because it was not a money-first approach that has been fronted most of the time. But when we started to inspire young people, and the few that started to showcase that they can then be able, regardless of educational level, use their skills to start doing something as we guide them, others started to follow. And we're tapping into that passion. And now this has become one of the biggest movements, not only in the continent, but even across the world. There are a lot of people who are practicing innovative volunteerism in India, in Latin America, in Europe, and they are reaching out to me all the time. So the essence of innovative volunteerism, as I've explained, is a mentorship tool, but more focused on a mindset change to see things that sometimes are regarded as challenges, but as opportunities. But knowing that you yourself, you can be able to turn that challenge into an opportunity and create not just impact, but also a legacy, which is self-fulfilling and at the same time what we need.
Wow, that's really mind-blowing. It's as if I've not seen your work before. This is mind-blowing, and I don't think any young African would not want to be a part of this, because one of our major problems is mindset. This is a time for us to ask Soja some questions about his presentation. Okay, Dr. Richard is
Dr.
raising
Richard
his
has
hand.
Yeah, thank you very much, Soja. Nice to see you again, and thanks for the amazing presentation. That was really excellent, and I think you've touched most of the aspects that I wanted to ask some questions on. But what I just wanted to highlight is you've mentioned the aspects sometimes where people think, say, you brought this up and then you elaborated on it, where people want things to be done for them, and if they are to do it, then if there's no money, they will not do it. That's dependency mentality, which is not just about afforestation. On anything to be done by a person, if someone doesn't give them that, they will not do it. And that's a mindset issue. So what I wanted to ask you is this: to what extent do you think focusing on afforestation without necessarily also focusing on other aspects can be a solution that is sustainable? And I say this because, as I said yesterday, that if you plant 5 million trees and cut down 10 million, then it doesn't really mean anything. So the point I'm bringing here, not necessarily a question, is we must diversify as we encourage people to plant trees so that they can focus on other alternatives, and that will then drive their livelihoods and spur more socioeconomic opportunity. The other aspect, not necessarily a question, is that sometimes the narrative, I think the narrative when it comes to afforestation is the biggest problem, because if we don't plant trees, then we are going to suffer, but not focusing, that's true, but not focusing in not planting trees for a living, but planting trees for a business. Planting trees for a business is what will sell to the people, because people, they don't really care much about the language of doing things for social endeavor. They want to hear, oh, if I plant, for example, fruit trees, oh, I am going to, in about the end of the year, start making money because I can harvest the fruits and sell. They will plant, they love that kind of language. And that's why my language about climate action, anything we do, we must do it through the lens of an enterprise, not a social endeavor. So, and you mentioned something which I just thought I should bring it up, which is, if you take woodlots, which pretty much is an afforestation way of doing things that is being done in communities. We did some work in Tanzania where people who had woodlots were using that as security in cooperatives to be able to take loans. This is a very beautiful analogy that can be brought up. Yes, I know we talk about carbon trading as if it's a simple thing. It's a very difficult thing. And Africa is on the supply side, not on the demand side. And so they don't really, that's why they don't even really benefit on it. But they will hardly benefit, but the entire globe will benefit. And that's something at the global level that is happening. But what I'm saying is, how about we start looking at the local level? That is, if you have your woodlots, that becomes a security or a collateral for you that if you don't even have money, you can use that in local cooperatives to be able to secure a loan to do something, maybe an agricultural activity that will give you more money. So start looking at afforestation through the lens of de-risking the whole value chain of activities that people are engaged in to be able to access financing, which then can then be able to now make people start seeing afforestation as an opportunity for them to build their way to access financing. People are planting trees for business, and those trees they planted are actually assets that they can take and secure loans to do other businesses. You will see magic working with this if you try it.
Exactly. When you attach an economic perspective to it, and when you attach that financial perspective to it, the whole game changes altogether. What it does is it gives them that incentive to do something more, because the more they do, the more they get. And in a way, it's good. In a way, this can actually help the afforestation drive if you can give them that. But yes, I mean, it's sad that it's come down to this.
And it's going to get worse.
That's the reality. Thank you so much for your contributions. We'd like Priyanka to take charge now.
Thank you, Shay. Thank you.
Let's embrace innovative volunteerism.